Welcome to Describing the Skybox, the podcast that's like a book club for people who don't think that books reward them enough for being good at them. I'm Chad Rellimans.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today, we're going to be talking about Silent Hill F, a game that was developed by Neobards Entertainment, published by Konami Digital Entertainment, and released in 2025 on Windows, PS5, and the Xbox Series X and S.
But first, if you can give us a like or a rating, it would be greatly appreciated. Chad, can you describe Silent Hill F?
Yeah, my favorite way right now to describe Silent Hill F is, oops, Dark Souls, which is not accurate, but funny. Silent Hill F is a survival horror game. It's also a third-person action game, which deviates in ways from the traditional Silent Hill game experience. But you also have to consider that I'm saying that as a person who has played exactly 3 Silent Hill games, including this one. So what my memory of what a Silent Hill game is not a complete picture, but this felt like a pretty big deviation from it to me.
Yeah, it's more like Oops, Devil May Cry.
A little bit.
Yeah. At least in the spirit world part. But I feel like the game I guess we might as well just jump right into it. Since it just kind of the conversation just led here. I feel like the game starts out feeling very Silent Hill.
Yes.
Up maybe like the first third of it, it's very much traditional, exploring the town, fighting some enemies here and there, stumbling across like a bigger area to explore, etc. And then you hit that spirit world part. And I feel like the middle of the game feels very messy or like confused as to like what it wants to be. It kind of feels almost like somebody, somebody up the chain of like the creative, like one of the people in a creative position who could call the shots had a bunch of ideas for a new game that maybe he couldn't get made, and then like they wanted to make a Silent Hill game, so he was like, I'll just put it in there. Because it's kind of all over the place because it has like the 2 different combat systems. Like you have the one that's a little bit more survival horror-y where your weapons break, and then you have like the weapons that don't break, and then you eventually get a wolf or a fox arm and a devil trigger, and it's just like there's like all these different ideas, and I don't think they quite go together. But I do think they kind of tie them together nicely towards the end, but we can get to that later. So I think the middle of the game felt very much like maybe this should have been a new IP and not a Silent Hill game.
Yeah, I think this is less of an elephant in the room in 2025 as it would have been a couple of years ago. But there was a period of time where Konami did a whole bunch of consolidation within the company, and they produced a lot fewer games for a while. And people thought that they maybe would stop playing or making games and focus on making gambling machines, which is a super cool thing to do. Love that. But instead, it kind of went into, like, there were a lot of games that came out that had Konami IP, but did sort of also feel like new games. And I wonder if there's, like, a bit of a case of that here as well. I don't know the relationship that Neobards has with Konami, like if they're a first-party developer or something similar that they outsourced. I'm not 100%, but it feels different, like because it's set in the 60s in Japan, like it's not set in Silent Hill. It's like Silent Hill by nature, but like it controls very differently. And like you said, there's a devil trigger part of the game where the combat is a lot less sort of careful. Like it changes a lot as it goes through. And yeah, I wonder if there is sort of a this is an idea for a game that we had. Here's like most of a script, and then they said this would fit into the Silent Hill branding, and so they put that on it. Like right now, I have no idea what the F in Silent Hill F is supposed to mean.
Me neither.
Yeah, like I was Fox. There's a lot of sort of like
Yeah.
themes of like gender. Maybe it's female,
Or, yeah,
which would
or-
be really funny if they made Silent Hill but for girls.
Yeah, for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or my guess was fungus. Before
Yeah.
I played the game, because like that's all over the branding.
There's also flowers. There's like orchids that
Yeah,
pop
yeah.
up. I'm guessing that that's what those are. I don't really know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, but no, it's weird. It was not what I was expecting. I went into this like shockingly blind, I think, for existing, and I try and go into games as blind as I can, but unless it is like a relatively unknown or just like not frequently talked about indie game, normally I have some knowledge. So when I showed up in this game and it was like, press R1 to do a light attack and B to dodge, I was like, what? I didn't even, none of the Silent Hill games I've played even have melee combat, really. Like, it was a very interesting thing and not what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Silent Hill 2 had like you could hit stuff with like a board in a pipe.
Yeah.
And stuff. But yeah, it was very stiff. Now, I didn't know about the action combat either. And I found it pretty surprising. But I mean, it just feels like, yeah, like that if you've been playing games recently, it just like actually isn't that big of a surprise. And so like, we have to appeal to the Dark Souls fans. Put action combat in there for like the 30 to 40-year-old demographic.
I do want to speak on it a little bit. I think I don't know what we want to like sort of really get into first, but I think this is the thing that like it's funny because like I'll get into more of this later as it goes on, but there's like a lot of parts of this game that I really liked, and the combat is such like a strange sticking point for me because it's probably the element of the game that I liked the least in a sense. But I have mixed thoughts on it. Like, I had a lot of fun with the combat. I also think the combat is bad. Like, I think it's not a really well designed system. And like part of that I think is kind of intentional, and then other parts of it just feel like it was kind of a like you were talking about, like maybe somebody higher up was like, they make the combat more like nudging it in a direction that it maybe didn't need to go.
Mm-hmm.
So as I described before, like the game has the like R1, R2 light heavy attack dodge system, and there's also like a focus. It has a lock on that isn't as like a immediate as a Dark Souls or like a Zelda Z targeting lock on, but it does, you know, like focus on an enemy. And then there's like ultra focus mode, which drains a meter and allows you to do counter attacks when enemies are doing certain moves. And it's a very odd system in a survival horror game because it is a system, and it's been like ever since fucking Ocarina of Time. Combat systems in 3D games similar to this are very defensively focused. You lock on so you can watch the enemy and see what they're doing, respond to their attack, and then do an attack back at them. It's what the system excels at. In a survival horror game, though, I feel like that's strange because you have a lot of tools to avoid damage, which is like, that's people when people talk about Dark Souls and stuff, when they say get good, they usually mean learn the bosses and enemies and dodge timing so that you can roll through attacks and not take any damage. So it feels weird that kind of mastery is being added into a survival horror game. And then to counteract that, they just made the enemies completely unreadable. Like the first time that you run into an enemy, there's no way for you to know what the timings on their attacks are. And it gets better over time, obviously, because you do learn those timings, but they aren't like a guy swinging a sword at you. It's like somebody twisting their torso 270 degrees, then waiting an arbitrary number of seconds before lunging at you with a knife really quickly. Like it's a thing that is just not easy to read at all. And I found that to be like, it was a little frustrating because I have been playing games that use this system where I expect to not get hit when I am focusing and like working on it. But like, it's good that I was getting hit 'cause it's a survival horror game and I need to be using my resources in order to keep the tension up. So it was like a mix of frustration and like an understanding of the system. I don't know. I found it to be kind of, it didn't mix well in the game to me.
Yeah. I mean, it puts you in a certain headspace. I agree. Like, because you usually see combat systems like this in an action game, so you want to play it like an action game and not like a horror game. But like I like the idea of, rather than using guns as weapons, using melee weapons and like doing a melee system, and then the weapons are just really fragile and they'll break easy, so you have to either like repair them or find new ones. Like, I like that on paper. And I feel like they could have even like leaned into some of the systems that are there, like the emphasis on like the dodging. It could have been like you do a perfect dodge and then it kind of like freezes time for a minute, so that gives you time to run away. And then, or like you do like the perfect parry or the whatever, like a counter attack, and that stuns the enemy, which gives you the opportunity to run away. You know, like I feel like you could have even used the systems that are there in service of like a more survival horror play style. But I think it's just that you also have the other half of the game that is more action game inspired. So you kind of have, the two different systems, which gets even muddier like towards the end, where like in the spirit world, you've had the fox arm for so long, and then they just take that away for the final boss. And so they're just like, well, I guess your weapon just doesn't break now. You know, they just have to like break their own rules.
Is that true?
Oh, well, I guess it depends on the ending you get.
Okay. Well, you have to get the same ending when you do the first.
Okay,
one,
yeah. In the normal,
if
you run out of weapons, your last one just doesn't break. It's just it'll just last forever. But anyway,
I didn't notice. So yeah, go on.
But yeah, so yeah, there's a bunch of conflicting ideas. I feel like they just needed to pick a lane, and I think the melee survival horror concept they had going on at the beginning of the game is the lane they should have picked, because I feel like that could fit the best.
Yeah, and it's like, it's weird because like it is partly a systemic thing, like the way that the game is set up does make you feel like, especially going back and forth. I have a note later on, and we can talk about it in a second, but I wish there's more separation between the real world part and the spirit world part. And there is a lot of it, but I wish that it was even more stark than it actually is. And that could have helped, but it's partly a systemic thing and then partly a player expectation thing. 'Cause like when you come back from being in the like fucking Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction, swinging a giant arm at people to destroy them, and then you go back to the regular world, it takes a second to click in like, oh, I don't need to be fighting everything. Fighting stuff reduce the durability of my weapons. I chance taking damage, stuff like that you would be considering if it was more of a pure survival horror game. So it does. I just like fully agree with what you said, basically. I think that the game should have leaned more into its survival horror elements, even using the systems that they have now in order to prevent that like loss of tension or sense of confusion from the player, just like not being 100% sure where they need to be like applying their mental energy at any given time.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and I don't know if we have more to say down this train of thought or not, but like, yeah, I as I was playing the game, I feel like the first third of the game, and then after that, the parts that take place in the town are the strongest parts. And like, I feel like the game, and I like what the Spirit World angle adds to it. I think that's like a cool addition to like the Silent Hill, to a Silent Hill sequel. But I feel like it would have benefited from more build up. Like if they had waited a little bit longer to introduce it, and then once it was introduced, I feel like you should have gone there more infrequently, because you're bouncing back and forth pretty much like 50-50. Like I feel like it would have been better to introduce it, then take it away, and then like let you stew in it and think about it and like want to go back before you ever finally do. And I think that would have aided the gameplay flow as well if you were like more like in the town in the survival horror headspace for longer, and then like the action combat bits were like a shorter burst. I feel like the balance would have felt better.
Yeah, and I think that like the first couple of times that you go into the Spirit World are just so much less necessary than the later ones. Like the first two, I don't know what you want to call them, like it's interstitial bits where you go to it and then pop back. They feel extra in comparison to the later ones, where it's just like solve a puzzle, walk toward a door, maybe you get a key and unlock a door, which is like a thing that recurs obviously, but like you're not in the shrine, you're not really interacting that much with the fox mask guy. It is sort of just like do a puzzle, fight an enemy, go into a door, and I don't know, like it felt like it was sort of padding at that point. I was a little bit worried. But then when we got to some of the later ones, I ended up really liking them. And I also... do we want to address the fox arm thing like immediately as part of like a mechanical discussion? Because like I have a lot to say about it.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Because I did appreciate going back there later, and I feel like the fox arm part, where it becomes more action combat-y than it was in the previous sections, comes at the right time in the game, because it comes after all of these like sequences where enemies are truly very dangerous, and you are potentially stressed, potentially low on resources. If you're playing on the normal difficulty level, I feel like you probably aren't low on resources. It felt like I kind of had an overabundance of them most of the time. That's kind of a discussion for later. But when I got into that section, it did feel really good to just like rip a guy to pieces, right? Like it has like a certain cathartic experience to it that I did think was worth it. Now, the devil trigger thing, I feel like was totally extraneous. Like that didn't need to exist. You are plenty strong without it. And it just sort of exists to I don't know, it added a meter, which I think is probably its biggest crime to me, where I'm like, you could have just like not had a meter and just
especially because you don't get to
combat.
use that mechanic that much.
Yeah,
like there's like the whole like you kill an enemy and then you can siphon its soul. It's just like it felt like you got to do that a grand total of like 15 times. And then
yeah, I think I
the game
activated the ability like 3 times in the whole game. Like the Hulk out ability. I mean,
yeah,
like it's pretty uncommon. So yeah, I thought that mechanically speaking, it was really great. Now, narratively speaking, I thought it was a masterwork of horror fiction. That's going too far. But the cutscenes generally, I think, are insanely well. This is weird to say in the context of cutscenes in a horror video game, but well directed. Like they were so slow. Like and just let the scenes breathe. And it was crazy to me because I've been playing more video games than most people play in a year for a decade now. And I'm very used to sort of the cadence of a AAA game release. And the fact that these cutscenes were so meandering and the characters would sit and not say anything and have like a moment of silence, and they go through the motions of like drinking water out of a bowl and sitting there and not doing anything, that I was so invested, and I felt like the events that happened in them had a lot more weight because of it. So the cutscene where she saws off, spoilers, where she fucking saws off her own arm with a saw, and then like is like biting down on the thing, like the blood's coming out, and it's like this very graphic scene, but it's shot beautifully, and is this like moment of, for me, like almost like a revelatory moment of like how far gone she is on this side of the story. Like it was, and like you come out of it, I love this. You come out of that sequence when you get control back, and the line of dialogue that Hideko says is, "It's a beautiful arm." And I was like, it fucking is a beautiful arm. It's so good. Oh my God. I love that sequence. And it was worth like any sort of like Ludo narrative dissonance I was feeling about the fact that like, oh, now I'm a Devil May Cry protagonist, like you were saying, was like, I was like, it's worth it for like that cinematic sequence. And then like, I feel less strongly about the later ones where like she gets branded, and then the third one where they take her eyes out. Though,
yeah. It is
both
nice,
cool.
Yeah, it is a nice detail that on the she gets branded second, and they like go to give her the thing to bite down on, and she refuses it.
Right.
She's got a taste for it now.
Yeah. God, it's so good. Like I genuinely think that like the cinematics in this game, this is the thing I was most surprised about, I think, is that I had very low expectations going into this game because of like preconceived notions that I have about Konami and the Silent Hill demo, the name of which I totally forget, that came out like a year and a half ago. That was like a 2-hour thing, being like pretty bad. I was like not confident in the direction the series was going. And I was surprised at how, I guess, like artistically complete this felt. Like it felt like somebody who had something to say said it with the backing of a company that gave them a lot of money to make it real. And so I was really happy with it in that sense. That's what I have to say about the fox arm. And I realized that I dipped into like 11 different things. So you can just pick something and run with it.
No, yeah, I do think the game is very cinematic. I think they hired, I don't know if he's a screenwriter or a novelist or somebody who's like an actual writer. I say actual as if a video game writer is not an actual writer. But
they're a fake writer. Yeah, I know.
A writer of fiction that's usually not video games to write the story for this. So I'm sure that's part of it. And the scene where she saws her arm off is surprisingly graphic. But yeah, very artistically shot, to where it doesn't feel like torture porn, even though I guess it technically is. Yeah, no, it's definitely a really standout part. Like, because up to that point, you've had parts where like the fox guy, like you have the doll warning you not to trust him, but you just keep on going anyway. And then at the end of like the previous part, like he has you like stick your hand in water or something, and it's actually molten lead or whatever it is.
Is actually the Gom Jabbar.
It's actually the Gom Jabbar. And she like burns her hand, and you're like, oh shit, like, and then you come in the next time, and she's just like, okay, I guess I'll saw my arm off. Yeah, like it is like a really like a big turning point that escalates in a really like surprising, impactful way.
Yeah, no, I was very impressed by it, I think, in that sense. And like it made me look past a lot of the very clunky mechanical elements of the game, because there were lots of moments where like I would get hit by an attack and I'd be like, fuck you, this is the worst game ever. Or some hyperbolic shit, you know? And I think that like the fact that I was so compelled by this narrative and also just like the visual elements of it had me looking past that a lot. And it's what I've been sort of stewing on the past few days since I beat the game is like, what is the mechanical experience of Silent Hill F compared to like what my subjective experience was?
Mm-hmm.
And I did keep coming back to it being like, I did like the moment to moment stuff a lot less than I was feeling in the moment. And it was just sort of made up for by the other elements of the game. Though I will say, like, I mean, it was also just like an effectively scary system, I think. For the most part. Like, obviously it's not scary when you can just like maul enemies to death with a giant arm, but like it is pretty scary in the moments where you do feel like you're on the back foot, and that unpredictability in enemy behavior is part of that. I think there are some enemies I think that were really badly designed from a mechanical standpoint, but they also all look really good and creepy, and they did a great job with the creature design, like they always sort of have in this series. So yeah, I am more mixed on it, like when I'm trying to put on my game critic hat and talk about it in that sense. But like when playing the game, I was like very into it, and I think that Fox Arkham Steam is a real like culmination of it for me.
Yeah, no, I think I would just agree with that. Yeah, when you step back and think about it, yeah, there's like a lot about the combat system that doesn't quite feel like it adds up. But yeah, like in the moment, yeah, I think the enemy design goes a long way. Like the basic like mannequin enemies, their animations are like have that just that right amount of like stall, you know, and like ways that you aren't expecting, that like they will continue to like be challenging to fight all the way through the game, or at least they were for me. And like I think it's like one of like the second kind of enemies they introduce is like a kind of like big, fast, like kind of gorilla type guy who will just like fucking charge you and do like a big combo or whatever. It's like really aggressive.
He's got that like shit coming out of his forehead.
Yeah, and those were like always scary to run into because they're like so aggressive and fast. So yeah, I think yeah, and that all, yeah, like you said, when you're on the back foot, like those enemies put you on. Like I think that the combat system feels good, like psychologically, almost like this is a psychological horror game. So the enemy design makes it work, I think.
Yeah, and I'm going to be controversial yet brave here and say that I think this is another instance of a game where I really like the weapon degradation system. I think that this is another thing where I feel like playing it on harder difficulties probably, I don't know, I don't want to say probably, might solve the issue a little bit. But like, I feel like it could have gone even further, because there is like, to me, there was like a big difference in how I felt walking around with a fire axe than how I felt walking around with the like regular steel pipe, right? Like it felt very powerful to me to have access to a weapon where I could block and my attacks did like a huge amount of damage. Like it felt more in that like action RPG space than it did in the survival horror space. And so I think that I like having those moments of empowerment. I think that that's a valid thing. This game is also extremely good about knowing when to sort of have quiet moments or to have loud moments. We talked about this, I think, in multiple episodes, but like the one that comes to mind is like Dead Space, the remake of Dead Space we did like, what, a year, 2 years ago? It was all loud moments. There were very few times when you got to just like, where it was allowed to be eerie. It was mostly just sort of an action game. And I think this is a really great mix where the combat feels involved enough that it feels like an action game when you're in it, but there's long periods in between where you can only sort of like sense danger on the periphery. And I really liked the amount of tension that built up. But then like there's this sequence where you go to Shu's house and then you go up a mountain and you have to like get a key to unlock a gate, and you get chased by the wind. I guess the fog monster is what they were referring to it as. And I just like didn't feel tension that whole time because I just had a fire axe and everything died in 2 hits. And I was like, man, I love that there is weapon degradation because I know that when I use this fire axe, it's going to be gone and I'm going to have to go back to something less strong. But it lasted for a very long time is what I'll say.
Yeah, and I guess it's a good time to talk about the difficulty selection. There's only 2 modes. There's story.
3 now.
Oh, okay. Well, when I
there
played,
was an update like 3 days ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because, well, that definitely probably goes a long way because that's something I was going to suggest. Because like when I started, there were only 2 difficulty modes. It was story and hard. So I was like, I'm sure that story is baby easy, so I should play on hard. So I played the first half of the game on hard before I switched. This game took me, I think, 2 hours longer than like the how long to beat because I spent 2 hours on the Sakuko boss fight.
Oh yeah.
Because it was very hard on hard mode. And yeah, we talked about this with Amnesia: The Bunker. I think last year, where it was like hard mode felt like way too hard at parts, and then story mode felt like way too easy all the time. So yeah, I wish there was a middle ground, and I guess, is that what they added? Did they add a normal mode?
They sure didn't. They added a casual mode.
Oh, so they added even easier?
They made even easier mode.
Damn, I was hoping for a normal mode.
Yeah. Somebody at Konami didn't do the homework on like the player psychology thing, because calling it story and hard puts so many people in like a state of analysis paralysis.
Yep.
Like I was.
Yeah, because I feel the weapon degradation feels like it's definitely balanced around hard mode. Because there were times where I was just without a weapon. Right.
Which is terrifying.
Which would just not happen on story mode.
Yeah, and I can confirm, did not happen to me at all on story mode. I don't necessarily know how much. So I'll give you the full 30 seconds of time in my life that it took for me to decide what difficulty to play on. Is I Googled what the fuck? Like, why is it called this? Essentially, it's like story or hard mode. And people said hard mode is fine, but the end of the game becomes very tedious. And I went, I guess I'm not doing that because I don't like tedium in my games. So I played it on story, and like reading into it and realizing that story was like their version of normal made me feel more okay with that decision. I was like, maybe it will be more balanced, but I do think that you're right. Like, I think that it's just not there in story mode to like make the transition. The Sakuko boss fight took me 1 minute when I played it. Right. Because I just killed her.
Yeah,
it was not hard.
It was straight up Dark Souls for me. It was like I had to learn her entire moveset. And like, because it's hard mode, when I got to her, I had like no healing items. So I had to like there were bandages on the ground, and I had to pick up, and I'm like, okay, I have these 2 bandages. I have to get through the fight with these 2 bandages. And like she has this move where she swings her giant flail weapon, and the hitbox on it is fucking huge. Because like you will dodge it. You will dodge it you could land a 737 in between you and the weapon, and it'll still hit you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw that on mine. It just didn't do very much damage, and I had like 5 medkits.
Oh yeah, that was like it would do like 3/4 of your health bar on hard mode. So
yeah, no, it seems like the difference is pretty massive. Yeah. No, yeah, and it's so weird too, because like I do kind of like those boss fights. And it would be nice if there was actually like a good middle ground between the two of them. Because the reason that kind of a boss fight works in a Dark Souls game, sorry to keep bringing it up, I apologize profusely for it, is because you restart without losing permanent progress, right? Like you're not wasting your like resources because you have a refillable healing system. That's how the games work.
Mhm.
And because this doesn't have that, if you struggled getting up to it at all, you just don't have the resources to fight the boss, and you then have to play perfectly. Like it can demand too much of the player if the player is not already playing perfectly. And I feel like that isn't the mode that most people should be playing on.
Right.
So it does feel like there should be that middle ground, which I guess I'm reiterating for like the 5th time at this point. But it really, that the fact that it did take that long, and like you had to really learn it, and especially in a game where the combat is this imprecise, like it's not like a Dark Souls game.
Yeah, and like the stamina is really hard to manage.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty punishing. Yeah, so yeah, it was difficult, and she had like so much goddamn health. Like that's what really made it difficult. It was like an endurance test. But yeah, I got
no
past
health
that, and I got up to the junior high or like the school before I switched it to story, because like that it really like because you go to the difficulty, like I'd been driven to that menu and it was like can't change back. If you change it to story, you have to play the rest of the game that way, and I was like,
oh no.
God damn it.
I also kind of hate that as a convention in games as well.
Yeah, it was amazing to once again to reference Dead Space. There was a sequence where I had like no ammo, and there's like a scripted sequence you get grabbed by a big tentacle and you have to shoot it, and I just didn't have enough ammo. So I had switched it to story or whatever, to easy, whatever it's called in that game, and got past that part and then switched it back. And then like that was nice to be able to do.
Yeah, and your experience was improved because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's that, and it's like it exists to protect people's like gamer cred of being like, oh, well, you have to play it on hard all the way through in order to get the achievement for beating the game on hard mode. It's like, well, congratulations, but like you having an achievement has now prevented like some percentage of players from even being able to finish the game.
Yeah,
I hope you're happy.
Yeah, I can sympathize though with the designers not wanting players to like switch it to easy anytime there's something even a little bit hard and kind of like rob themselves of any challenge, because lots of people would do that.
Yeah,
so I guess it makes
but you would
sense,
hope that those people would just choose the easier difficulty,
but they won't.
We just haven't. We haven't figured out how to make people be honest with themselves.
Right.
Yet. That's actually the highest difficulty setting, is
being honest,
self-reflection.
That's a very Silent Hill theme.
Yeah. Okay. Which is a great way to then talk about the themes of this game. I think so. I was sort of mapping this out in my head of me comparing this. It's largely just to Silent Hill 2. If you're curious, the games in the Silent Hill franchise I've played are this Silent Hill 2 and The Room, the 4th Silent Hill game, which ended up being a boon because there's a callback to a scene in The Room in this game that I doubt that many people would have caught, but I happened to, which is just sort of random chance, but lucky me, I suppose. But I find it interesting that like Silent Hill 2 is a game that is like heavy on the narrative complexity, the metaphor, the stuff that Silent Hill as a franchise is like now known for, and very light mechanically. As a survival horror game, it is very competent. I think it is a good survival horror game, but it doesn't do a whole lot that other games had not done before, and it doesn't require the player to be like a very reflexive player in order to succeed. Silent Hill F has sort of balanced the scales out, where it is a much more complex mechanical system and a slightly less complex like narrative and story, but I kind of like where it ended up because of that. I found this to be very approachable, both on like there are many layers to the storytelling that I found very good. We already talked about the fact that like the cutscenes themselves feel very cinematic and well directed and have pacing that is to die for. But it also has a lot of sort of elements that are pointing to the metaphors of the game in a way that are like there's the parental abuse, the fact that this takes place in the 60s, like institutional sexism, the plot centers around her being in an arranged marriage and stuff like that. Like there's all of these like little things that you can get on all of that. There's an element of like gender confusion that I'm not 100% sure on. But like the fact that a lot of people are like, oh, you don't even treat her like a girl, or like she doesn't seem like a girl. She hangs out with guys a lot. The doll is like a constant reference to the fact that like that represents girlhood to her, or innocence, or potentially a combination of both. But I wasn't really able to delve that far into it.
I think
but like,
that's more like
it is very accessible.
Yeah, I feel like that's more of like a gender expectations thing. Which I feel like, yeah, I think that leans into like the arranged marriage stuff. Like, I feel like that would have been more of an issue of the time. Like, you are a girl, so you have to do this and that. And then because you don't want to do this and that, you kind of lean away from acting like a girl, sort of thing.
Right.
Like, I think it's like a supporting element and not so much of like a deep theme in and of itself.
Right. Yeah, it's just sort of like like what does femininity mean?
Right.
Both like to Hinako, and also just like to 1960s Japanese society, right? Like it's that is like the main sort of thrust. So I guess that makes sense as well. But I did like all of that stuff. It does lead me into, and I don't think this is a straw that broke the camel's back situation, but I did sort of explode like a camel with a severed vertebrae when the game was like, play the game 3 more times to unlock the true ending. And I'm like, fuck you. I am over it with multiple endings. Please stop punishing me for playing your game by not letting me see the ending. I have to now go to an outside source to see it because I'm not going to spend another 12 hours in your game immediately after playing it the first time.
Right. I'm actually okay with it in this case. Like, I feel like the normal ending is like a good horror movie ending. Preferable
like
to a happy ending, in my opinion.
Well, I agree. And now that I've seen the other endings on YouTube, thanks YouTube, I know that of the endings, like, I like the non-true endings more than I do the true ending. But, like, they wrote a story.
Right.
And then they said 10% of people get to see the ending of the story in the context of the work as it is presented. And that frustrates me a lot. I don't like that. I've heard people give lots of praise to New Game Plus. They said, oh, it's so different. I guarantee you it's not that different. It's probably a little different and more different than other games with New Game Plus, but it's not going to be that different. And you're going to be playing it for 10 more hours to play through the game again to get the ending, which is 11 seconds of a cutscene, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I also am okay with the ending as it stands, like the first ending that you get, but also, like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah,
I would rather you hide gameplay behind New Game Plus than narrative content.
Yeah. I think I largely agree. It didn't really bother me in this case because I liked the normal ending well enough. But yeah, I really hate this sort of thing when like the bad ending like really sucks. And then you feel like cheated or shortchanged that you didn't get to see the true ending.
Right.
Which I mean, I guess I could see how you would be in this game, but like I didn't really bother me that much. When I looked
Yeah.
up the endings, I was like, that's fine.
Yeah, the biggest complaint that I've seen regarding the like bad ending or whatever, like the first ending that you get, is that it is a like it's all a dream ending where it's like, oh, she was just having like a drug induced psychosis. But like there's actually a lot that goes into that I think elevates it beyond that's just a dream.
Well, I mean,
where
Silent
like
Hill's always been a it's all in your head sort of thing anyway.
yeah, you should have been expecting it going into this game because that is such a common way that these stories go. But also, like, it implicates Shu, who throughout the majority of the game is like supposed to be a character that you can lean on because he's, you know, your partner who you grew up with and have all these fond memories with. But then he's also been poisoning you essentially for years. And so it turns that like, oh, am I being manipulated by Shu? Am I being manipulated by Fox Mask? Am I being manipulated by my parents?
Yeah, it's like,
and the whole point of the true ending.
Yeah, like it made
yeah.
me, wonder if like Shu and Fox Max were essentially the same. You know?
Yeah, sort of, kind of,
yeah,
like as
like
a mirror.
opposite sides of the coin. Yeah,
yeah, and I think that's intentional, like because it is sort of a. To talk a little bit about something I mentioned before, like I wish there's more of a separation between the spirit world and the real world. These are both in quotes. And like I wish that your healing items didn't carry over between the two. I wish you had separate inventories or a different healing system completely. Yeah, because it feels weird. Because it is two separate things. The game basically confirms that it's like two the true ending, they are two physical beings that talk to each other.
Right.
Like they are different. And so it's weird that they share an inventory. Like that seems strange. I realized that it would have been difficult to like rebalance around that idea, but I think it could have gone a long way to forcing the separation. And I think it would make people see the like more submissive version of Hinako in the spirit world as a separate entity earlier in the game. I don't know if that's good narratively or not. I'm not a screenwriter, but I think it would help with comprehension a little bit if they were more separate. But I think that like all of that is good. I like that there are these mirrors, Shu and the Fox Mask, the two different Hinakos, the fog monster being like the final form of the of like bride Hinako, who heir of the fox god's powers. I don't know.
Right. The bride of the fox demon.
Bride of Fox Demon Kinstein. Yeah. No, I think and I genuinely like it. I do think that the gameplay could have done a little bit more to accentuate the themes in that sense. But
yeah,
overall, big fan, generally speaking, of the plot and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think kind of to like backpedal a little bit, but to still kind of talk about similar things. I feel like the game, like I guess I'd like to get your opinion on like how you think of this, like big picture, just like as a Silent Hill game, because like. I feel like Silent Hill 2 is held up as a classic. You know, it's aged pretty well. Like we played the original version a couple years ago, and it was pretty easy to go back to, and was very enjoyable to play through. So yeah, it's a big like beloved classic, and it hadn't had a sequel in a long time. Like it's been like over a decade, I think, since the last Silent Hill game. And like as you mentioned, like everyone thought that Konami was going to stop making games altogether for a while, and you know PT got canceled, etc. and so forth. So yeah, when they brought it back, I feel like they did such a good job of like making it feel different, because like I feel like you don't want to exist in the shadow of Silent Hill 2. I feel like I like that they brought in like that it's set in Japan. I think that's cool. Like it emphasizes the fact that Silent Hill, the town, isn't the thing that's haunted. It's like the fog itself, and it could envelop any town. And then I also like the fungus or the flowers or whatever it's supposed to be. Because like I know that like fungi in real life can kind of like amalgamate into like a single organism and like have like an entire forest be covered by like one giant network of fungus. That kind of mirrors fog, right? It can be everywhere all at once. And it kind of like that's how like if you want to headcanon stuff, like that's how enemies always know where you are. So they're always able to communicate through this like fucking fungal network. Things like that. I think that's like really, really cool. And yeah, and I don't exactly love how it's like implemented 100%, but like the spirit world thing is cool too. But yeah, like it just, I feel like they like did such a good job of making it feel very much like a Silent Hill game for the first third. And then like it just, I feel like it makes that clash of like the Devil May Cry Fox Spirit World thing like very much feel like what we were speculating is like it was a separate game that kind of got grafted on. So yeah, like I feel really conflicted because like on the one hand I feel like they did like such a good job at like making a Silent Hill sequel, and then on the other hand they like had to include, it feels like they had to include all this other stuff. So that's one of the bigger things I've been chewing on.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think to your original question, like I don't put a lot of stock in like intellectual property as an artistic concept, I guess. And so I think that this fits totally fine under the Silent Hill banner, like as a Silent Hill game. I do like that they went in a different direction with it. There are design trends in every industry, essentially. And I think that like the like Japanese, particularly like the shrine aesthetic and everything, like all of the sort of like I don't want to get this wrong, like Buddhist, Taoist, like that kind of the religious symbolism that has been used a lot in recent years. I think part of that is there are more games from Japan that are coming over more untouched than they would have been in years past.
I think Japan is also just having a wave of nostalgia these days.
That could be it, yeah.
Yeah, because I only know this because of recently watching the YouTuber JJ McCullough, the Canadian YouTuber. Yeah. He's done like a series about like Japan and how they separate their culture into like eras. And like he talked about like the Showa area is like the latter half of the last century. And there's multiple, that word shows up multiple times in this game where you're like looking at things and it says something about like the Showa period. So I think there's like a lot of nostalgia for that time period in Japan right now.
That can make sense. But yeah, and I feel like I've seen a lot of it recently. And that probably dampened for me like how striking the difference is. Because if you look at Silent Hill, is a very like, it's weird because it's a purely Japanese developed franchise. It's a very American survival horror game.
It's a very Western, yeah.
Yeah. And not just Western, but like Midwestern. Like it's always set in these like flat towns and very little like, and to set it in rural Japan in the 1960s is actually a pretty bold choice that I think may have washed over me at the original, like at the outset, because I feel like I've been more inundated with that. We also played Shenmue earlier this year.
Oh yeah, yeah,
which is also
where you live at a house on the top of a hill in rural Japan.
Yep. Yeah, rural Japan in the 80s that time, but
yeah,
yeah. So it is. There's like kind of a bit of a overexposure to it, but I think that it's a genuinely good choice to take it out of that context because it presents so differently, and I do really like it because of that. I like the idea of Silent Hill as being more of a concept than it is like a place, because that's kind of what it always has been. But the games have been really shy about acknowledging it. They're always like, yeah, it's a thing that exists in your head, and it's based on your well, after the first game anyway, it's based on like the thoughts that you have as a person. But then, you know, but it's still Silent Hill, and it looks kind of the same in every game.
Mm-hmm.
So I like it as that. By this point, I think I may have forgotten the latter half of what you were saying, but
just kind of how like it felt really strong. Like to me, having like the new town, and like they had the fog was there, but they also had this new element of the fungus. Like that all just felt like really, like it just really fit really well. And then like you go to the spirit world, you introduce like the fox thing, and then like the fungus thing kind of takes a back seat, and like, you know, like it just feels like, I feel like they did such a good job in making something that felt very Silent Hill, and then they tacked this thing that wasn't very Silent Hill onto it. But then I do think the last kind of chunk of the game marries them pretty well. And I didn't care as much, once they kind of like brought the story to fruition, and like you're like kind of the part where you're like running away, like, and you're running through the spirit world, and then like you fade back to the town and you're running from the fog monster. It's like when they integrated them, I thought it worked, but I feel like the middle of the game, it's kind of oil and water.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I also think that like I have a pretty strong preference for like the game acknowledges the separation in its difficulty settings. Like I played this on story, action, and hard puzzles, right?
Yep.
Like the action and puzzles are two separate things just by the game's own vocabulary.
I was happy to see that brought back.
Yeah, same.
Puzzle difficulty, baby.
But I loved I preferred the puzzles that happened in the real world to the ones that happened in the spirit world, because they felt more in your head, like you could think about them and rationalize how to solve the puzzles. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the like the locker puzzles and stuff like that in the school,
it's like more real world stuff you're doing, unless like video gamey. Get this piece, put it in this block.
That exactly, yeah. Like all of the puzzles in the spirit world were very gamified. It was like you would do a game that was using puzzles that were built into the environment, and then you put in Resident Evil 1 on the PlayStation, and you played a little bit of that for a while, where you found a crest that you put in a slot that was hexagonal. Like it felt separate, and I liked them less because they felt less integrated. But I do agree that by the end of the game, they do a better job with it. Plus, the addition of the additional combat utility meant that like just existing in the spirit world was more fun. My least favorite stretch of this game by a mile is the puzzle where you just have to like turn colors and enter rooms in order to drop not Junko, that's her sister. Not Sakiko, but the other girl into lava.
Yeah, that sequence just felt like so long.
Yeah,
it's just so much running down hallways and flipping switches,
and all the enemies respawn.
Yep.
Like,
that part was a slog.
Yeah, it sucks, and I did not enjoy it very much. I liked the conclusions of them to an extent, because I kind of gave this away a little bit. Forget everything I said for the last 10 seconds, and if you weren't paying attention to the podcast, good for you, because now this joke will work better. I do love that's the story setup of that segment is like you go through these areas, and you find out backstory about the characters, and you're going through, and you're like, oh, this girl is afraid of the dark, and she's really ashamed of like how she acts when she's afraid, and that she has this connection to the shrines. And so when you find her, you imprison her in a shrine, and then you leave her in the dark. You turn off all the lights, which is a pretty bad thing to do. I personally wouldn't do it to a friend. Then you go to the other one, and then you drop a girl in lava. Which seems really disproportionate.
I don't know if I agree, because I feel like what's being implied with leaving what's-her-name in the dark, because it felt, I was reminded of the Edgar Allan Poe story Cask of Amontillado, where he gets the guy drunk and then takes him and just bricks him and leaves him to starve to death. So I think you're just leaving her in the dark to just starve to death slowly. Whereas at least if you're dropped into lava, you're going to die immediately.
I mean, that's true. I'm saying the optics of it, not great.
Right, yeah.
Like, why did she... Well, also, I don't even understand why she got dropped in lava. Is it because she was incendiary toward you?
She was too hot.
She was too hot to handle. That's
know.
hot for teacher. Never mind.
I found that a part of the story that was harder to like read what was going on with the friends, like what exactly they were represented. So yeah, I kind of lost track of her whole deal.
Yeah, and it's just like that part and it being separate. Also, the subtitles referred to their handwriting as becoming emotional, which is a weird way to describe handwriting. Like, I get what they're going for.
Maybe it's a Japanese thing.
Yeah, maybe it's like a direct translation kind of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, it was that whole segment I was not a huge fan of on like any front, really. Like, it was just not for me. And so, yes. I do think that they could have married the two better, and it felt like there was too much of a distinction between them. And I think even the mechanical side of stuff got worse during the spirit sections prior to getting the fox arm.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It would have been cool if they had kept saving with the red square in the real world, and then you have the shrines in the spirit world. Because, man,
that would be good.
There's just something about the red square that's so cool to me. I wish they would have brought it back. But what was I gonna say? Oh, we just talked about my least favorite part of the game, and it sounds like probably yours too. But do you have a favorite part? Because mine is probably like the final real world, I guess, the town dungeon of Hinako's house, where you're going through the loops. It felt like the one part of the game where they maybe took a little bit of inspiration from PT. Because like you're going through a loop in a hallway, so I really liked that part. It had like it felt like something from the latter like third of Silent Hill 2 to me. It's like a part where you're like in the town still, but it's like when it's starting to get more surreal and more crazy. Like it felt like it hit that spot for me where it's like, oh, things are really escalating, but we still feel like we're like grounded in the town.
Yeah, I first of all, yes, I think we just agree on the least favorite part of the game. I would say that is probably my second favorite area in the game is the house. That is also where the reference to the room is, the room with the giant head. That's like a doll.
I was wondering what was up with that.
Yeah, it's just a callback as far as I know, because there's a sequence in the room where one of the characters' giant head is just in a room and stares at you, and there's nothing else to do there. You just walk away. It's just there to be weird. So that was really cool. And I think it works in this game as well. Like it accomplishes a similar goal. So yeah, I also like that. I found the puzzles in that to be, I didn't know that you could turn the pieces around for the door puzzle. So that took me longer than it should have. I didn't see the button prompt, but, I thought, yeah, the puzzles were a little on the easy side, I think, in that section. But I think it all sort of flowed together really well, and had a nice, like, it constantly met you with stuff that was sort of unexpected, and I liked that a lot. Also, it made me learn that the kitchen knife is like OP, so I was like, oh shit, yeah, I was having a good time with the combat in that as well. So, but I think my favorite part of the game, which is gonna sound derogatory, I guess, but I don't intend it. The disparity is not that high, but like everything from the moment that you press new game up until the scarecrow puzzle, like that, the whole first section of this game, I think is really good. I think it's really scary. I think that the just like the 10-minute section, honestly, it's probably not even that long, where there's one monster and you don't have a weapon and you're in that house, is like everything that's good about like jump scare style indie horror boiled down to its like essence, essentially. Like you're just dodging the one scary thing and trying to accomplish an objective. A lot of that stuff, like in the beginning, I just really enjoyed. And I started me out very much on the right foot. Probably had a lot to do with my low expectations.
Yeah, just the part where you're just doing Silent Hill stuff.
Yeah, it just feels good to do.
Yep.
Also, like, it leads into the sequence where the first character like dies, and you like drag him into the candy shop and stuff. Like, I don't know, that whole part is cool as well. Like, I think a lot of the slow character building stuff really sold it for me. But yeah, Hinako's house is the most like atmospheric and cool place. The boss fight is pretty cool, though it's a little sad that they're kind of just like two slight variations on existing enemies, but
yeah,
it was still neat. It visually very cool. I didn't complain about the camera. I need to complain about the camera just for like 2 seconds.
Okay.
It specifically in fights against larger enemies automatically tilt the camera up a little bit, because for some reason it like defaults to the camera looking at its feet, and you have to like to angle it up to be able to see what it's actually doing, which is I think why I called it like a soft lock on earlier, because it doesn't adjust your camera angle at all.
It also
I found that really distracting and annoying.
Yeah, it also takes a second to like commit to locking onto a thing. Which makes it feel a little mushier too. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's intentional in order to like make the combat more hectic, but I don't know, it didn't really work for me as like a as like a mechanical thing. I didn't feel like I was that stressed by it. I just wish that I didn't have to do chores in order to play the game.
You need to be more like Link. And want to do chores?
I need to want to do chores. I have the only other thing that I had written down, I don't know if you want to talk about it at any length, is that I do think the game, just graphically, I think it just looks very good. I think if there are some areas that end up looking a little samey, I would say my biggest problem with like environment design is that it's kind of easy to not necessarily get lost, but I did find myself checking the map. It's hard to get lost because you have a map, and I didn't want to be checking the map, but I felt it was necessary because there are a lot of parts that take place in the woods or in a building where all the walls look exactly the same. So I do wish that was a little bit more, there's a little more detail in those environments, but by and large, I think that most of the areas in this game look really gorgeous. I loved all of the parts that took place in the woods. The school was, I think, really well done because of all the doors. There's a lot of tension navigating between rooms. I think that like just the environments and stuff are just really beautiful to me. I thought they were great.
Yeah. I also like the way it looks. And would agree. Yeah, there's like, I feel like that's like a pretty common problem in AAA games these days, because they're so expensive to make, so they don't have quite as much variety as maybe as they should. Yeah, once again, to beat the dead fox, I feel like the Spirit World part is where it hurts the most, because like it really feels like just hallways, and it feels like it has, I think, less of a sense of place because of that. Like if it was a little bit more unique, I think that would have helped out. But Yeah, no, I agree. It looks really nice, like the facial animations and everything. Like the people look really good. The environments, like the town, looks really great.
And
Yeah,
that's all.
yeah. The only other thing I had a note on is just because it's just something I completely forgot about. Because like I looked up reviews and stuff earlier today, as I do, to help me organize my thoughts, and I saw clips of people playing with the dialogue in English, and I forgot that was a thing you could even do because it just feels wrong. In this situation.
The funny coincidence, actually, the actress who plays Hinako in the English version is the same actress who plays Julie in Slitterhead, the literal last game we did. But she is also like one of those like anime voice actresses who's in fucking everything. Like she plays the main character in Chainsaw Man, or I interpret as the main character because I've never seen the show.
Isn't Chainsaw Man the main character of Chainsaw Man?
I guess Chainsaw Man's probably, but I always hear about what's her name.
I don't know the name of the character. I know what she looks like.
Yeah, you also don't watch it. Yeah, but that person, she's the female lead of Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
And she's in like Hunter x Hunter and like all kinds of animes and shit.
Right.
Is animes with an S the plural of anime, or is it just anime?
I think it's just anime.
Okay. I'm exposing myself a little bit right now. No, but I think that's fair. I think it's like I feel like with Sekiro, I think it's the only game that I've ever, where it's given me the option to play it in a different language, and I chose to go with a language that I don't understand. Because I have played From Software games before, and I'm like, I'm not going to fucking understand what these people are saying anyway. Right. So I'll just turn this on and read subtitles. But I played this in English because I don't know, it's a Silent Hill game. I didn't want to like, I'm sure that it's great in the original Japanese, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it is because I'm not usually a snob about subs versus dubs. I actually think it's like really annoying that people care a lot about that. But I don't know. It felt wrong to not play it in Japanese to me for some reason. It feels like just as weird as like watching like a live action show. Like it would be like watching Squid Game in English to me.
Oh yeah. That one notoriously had a bad dub.
Yeah, but it just feels like it would be wrong. Because it's like, it just feels like it's so rooted in like being set in Japan.
True. That is a thing.
It would be like, it would be like playing Shenmue. Wait, no, I did play Shenmue in English, and I liked it because it was so
I don't
goofy.
actually know if there's an option in the...
Yeah, there is.
I don't know if it's in the original. I don't remember being presented with that option.
Yeah. We probably talked about that on the episode.
Yeah. But we also talked about... fucking what game? Ghostwire Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
And that's a game that also has like a lot of Japanese cultural influence. I don't know if influence is the right word, if it's just like it's a product of Japanese culture. But it does make me wonder, and I don't mean this in like a bad way, because like it's a major part of like every culture, but how much of Japanese culture is food?
Right.
Because I feel like there is a big focus on food in that game, and then also in this game, all of your items are like 100 different kinds of food that I've never heard of.
I think it's like a big part of like folklore too. So, like you lure in this whatever yokai spirit with this food, or like
right,
I feel like
use
that's
a cucumber to get the kappa or whatever.
Yeah, it's like you leave out your bowls so that pot scraper will come in, like all that. I just feel like
we gotta get the Yule lads mention in.
Yeah, I just food's a big part of like folklore and storytelling, I think.
Yeah, and a big part of culture as well. It's just like, I don't know, maybe I'm probably overlooking this examples in like American games as well. It's like,
I don't know, Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah, Johnny Appleseed.
I'm just trying to think of American things that deal with food.
Hot dogs.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's Earthbound. Hot dogs are a healing item in that. But that's made by a Japanese developer, so.
Right. But correctly identifying that we as
hot
Americans
dogs,
eat a lot of hot dogs
fries.
and hamburgers.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll probably cut this out of the episode, but did you were you part of one of the groups? I don't think that you were. Apparently, like the National Sausage and Frankfurter Association or whatever, like did a market research thing, and West Virginia by a mile eats more hot dogs than any other state. It's like 400 hot dogs per person in West Virginia.
That's why. Is it because they're so cheap?
I presume, yeah.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Can't even think of the last time I ate a hot dog.
I can, but also at the same time, like, nobody I've ever talked to about this has been like, I would say it's reasonable that I ate 400 hot dogs last year.
Yeah.
Which means that there has to be like 10 guys who eat like 20,000 hot dogs annually. Like, that's the only explanation for this number.
I feel like, I only ever have them on like 4th of July anymore.
Yeah. That's... Anyway, that's my hot dog.
It's a popular like childhood food. Maybe all the moms who have like 8 children are just cooking hot dogs for their children for lunch every day.
Yeah, cutting up hot dogs, throwing the mac and cheese. That's a classic. Yeah, classic. Well, as tempted as I am to go with Frankfurter thoughts after that, that's definitely not going in the main episode. It might be at the end. Do we have F thoughts?
My F thoughts, Fitzgerald, are...
That was a real thinker. I had to, I had to mull that one over.
I'm a little smarter than some. No, I'm very cultured. I don't eat hot dogs because I'm very cultured and not...
See, now I have to include the hot dog conversation. You've locked it in.
Yep. Anyway, so my F thoughts are I also didn't have much expectation for this. I do think I saw the trailer and thought it looked cooler. It stood out to me, I think, more than it did to you. So like I did think it looked cool and thought I would probably like it, you know. But like I didn't really have specific or high expectations for it. And I think, like the first, like, I think half-ish of the game I thought was really great. It's the part of it that feels the most Silent Hill. And not to say that I want, them to just do the same thing over again and just, make Silent Hill 2 again. Especially since they already just did that. I like the stuff that it did new. Like I already brought up, I think that the fungus is a cool extra little layer that I think weaves in with the fog idea really well. I liked that it was set in a different town. Like, it felt like it had its own identity and was doing something different, and I liked that a lot. I think the town was designed really well. I like the rural areas combined with the town. But yeah, I feel like I even like the idea of the spirit world. I think the middle part of the game is messy. I think it's trying to do two different things. On the one hand, it's trying to do this modern reinterpretation of Silent Hill with the melee weapons that, like break, and they're trying to do like a survival horror thing on one side, and then they have this different idea for this spirit world where the weapons don't break, and then it builds into this Devil May Cry action combat, and it's just like, they just don't go together. And then I do think they do a surprisingly good job of pulling the hat trick of like marrying the two things. They marry the two things much like Hinako does not want to marry in her arranged marriage. But so I think overall, I think the game works for me, though. I think I ended up liking it overall in the end. Like I think aesthetically, thematically, like the enemy design, like there's like a lot of things that I think make the game work. And I think go further, than the flaws do. Like I think the positives outweigh the negatives. So yeah, I think overall I liked it quite a bit. I think over time I will remember it more fondly. Like I'll forget the bad parts and mostly just remember the good parts. So yeah, I liked it. And I mean, I'm excited for them to make more. Like for their first Silent Hill game, I think this was really good. And I don't know, maybe make a spin-off game for whoever had all the ideas for the Devil May Cry-esque stuff. Like make a separate game that's just called like Fox Mask or something. Like because I feel like somebody clear on the team clearly wants to make that type of game. So, and yeah, Devil May Cry itself spun off from Resident Evil, so why not? So anyway, that'll end my F thoughts.
I do actually, if I remember correctly, I just saw this in passing. I think they did announce a new Silent Hill game for like March or something, but that's like way too soon for it to be the same team. So I'm assuming that this is like some spin-off thing. I'm not sure. Regardless, though, I think that this game that we're talking about right now, I think it's good. I think that it falls short of like masterpiece level. I think that there was a moment where I was like almost ready to commit to that, and then I backed down as I finished the game up, and then had a little bit of time away to sort of digest it. But it's still really good. Like this is a strong entry in this series in a way that I was super not expecting. And if similar to me, you're coming into it with like little to no expectations or even low expectations, given sort of Konami's reputation over the last few years, I think that this is going to surprise you. I do think the combat is a little bit odd and at odds with the rest of the design of the game in a certain way, but works out well in the end. Like it's still fun. I think the difficulty could use a little bit of balancing, both up and down on their respective difficulty levels, in order to get like a more smooth experience for the player. But I thought the puzzles were well designed and satisfying. I think the game looks really gorgeous. I think the creature design, while very similar to the designs in other Silent Hill games, still slaps. It's still pretty cool. And I think especially the stuff in the narrative and the story development is really interesting, except death to multi-ending games. I'm so sick of it. I don't know. I just like, I came out of this just like very positive. I think a lot of it had to do with sort of the cinematography of all of the cutscenes and stuff was surprisingly well done to me. I thought the pacing was really good. And I also kind of hope that they take lessons from this, because it is different enough from Silent Hill 2 while still being like a successful horror game that I think it really broadens the scope of what Silent Hill as a franchise is capable of doing. So, I mean, worst case scenario, I hope that this team goes on to make things that are equally weird and more refined, and can crank out something else that is just as good. But I would love to see more things like this, and I do think that it's a super solid entry in the series. Thank you for listening to Describing the Skybox this week.
What will we be describing next time?
Next time, we're going to be talking about Hades 2. Hey, D's 2, no, never mind. Next time, we're going to be talking... We're going to be talking about Hades 2, the action roguelike sequel to Hades, the first one from 2020, but in 2025. The game is out of early access after almost exactly a year, I think. And the 1.0 version is out, and they've already done one update, but they don't plan to do a whole lot more, so the game is no longer in a state of flux, which is nice. So I'm excited to talk about it. I would say I'm excited to play it, but I have played it for about 100 hours already.
Of course.
So that ship has sailed. Ship of Theseus has sailed.
Of course. I might let this be the motivation for me to actually pick up a Switch 2. Might just like buy a Switch 2 and play it on there.
Right. Something to think about. But yeah, so that'll be fun. Until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at describingtheskybox.com or on splattershot.pro. There you can find all of our contact information. You can find our Discord server where people suggest games and talk about the games as we play them. And our YouTube channel, which hosts all of our old episodes, including ones that we did on Silent Hill 2, Resident Evil 4, the Resident Evil 4 remake, the Medium.
Yeah, those are probably the best call-outs.
Uh-huh.
But we have a horror playlist. We've played 1 million horror games.
That's true. This is obviously the last episode of Halloween.
The spooky season.
The spooky season. So we'll be going into some more normal episodes, and then the Skybox Awards. I don't know if that's what we want to call it. We're going to workshop it a little bit before going into it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, excited to close out the year. Drink the kudzu tea to slowly restore the like button.
Cut your own arm off to partake in the ancient ritual of smashing the subscribe button.
Arrange a marriage with someone in the comments section.
Use the big sledgehammer you just picked up in the garden to ring that bell.
And today, we're going to be talking about Silent Hill F, a game that was developed by Neobards Entertainment, published by Konami Digital Entertainment, and released in 20 hunky guys on Well Endowed's Gay Station 5 and the Sexbox series Penis.